What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson, today joined by my lone co-host, Collin Alcaze. We couldn't get the four-piece back together, but hopefully soon. But either way, me and Collin are here to discuss some New York Rangers content. Today, we're going to be discussing Patrick Kane. I know we made a video about a month ago discussing should the Rangers look to bring back Patrick Kane. We were a little torn on it because there are some positives and negatives regarding bringing Kane back. But as the season has gotten underway and progressed, there's been a little bit of some recent news about the Rangers and Kane. We have a final look at what the lineup currently looks like. We're starting to see where the Rangers need to improve upon, where it looks solid. So just a little bit of an update and some news that we're going to be covering today. But before we get into it, Collin, how are you doing?
I'm good. I always love talking about Patrick Kane. He's one of the more fun players to talk about. And it's always an interesting debate between whether Rangers fans want to bring him back or not. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what the comments are like after this video. I've been looking forward to getting on Twitter when I can and seeing all the discussions about it. So excited to get into this one.
Of course. And be sure to follow both me and Collin on Twitter. Both of our tags are right above us. And be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss a notification and you don't miss any Patrick Kane New York Rangers content, because we're going to be producing a lot of Rangers content this season. Be sure to follow all of our social medias at Fireside Rangers on both Twitter and Instagram, and we'll really just start to dive deep into this Patrick Kane situation. Now, first, I kind of want to just go over what the Rangers really got from him last season. We thought that the Rangers were going to have to make a major trade, give up a lot of assets for Patrick Kane, but they ended up not really having to spend much. The trade involved a conditional 2023 second-round pick and a 2023 fourth-rounder. That second-rounder would have become a first for either 2024 or 2025 had the Rangers won two playoff series last year. Clearly, they did not. They barely won 2 games. So the Rangers ended up not giving up much for Kane. In that stint throughout the regular season, he scored 12 points in 19 games for the Rangers, had a couple more points in the playoffs, but overall didn't really look like the old Patrick Kane. Now, we know he was injured. We didn't know it at the time, but he was playing through an injury. But just Collin, just very quick, what you saw from Kane last season, what worked, what didn't, and what's your overall take on how he performed with us?
I think what didn't work was him with Panarin, like everybody had thought it would. I think everybody expected them to be put together and for their chemistry to just pick up where left off. I think that very evidently wasn't the case. I think they tried to force a little bit too much, and that didn't work. I think that he was a better fit on that first line, and he didn't really have a ton of time to get into the swing of things with the Rangers. He had 19 games before the playoffs were rolling around the corner, and he had 12 points in those 19 games. That's not bad. Obviously, it's not the production that you'd like to see from a superstar like Patrick Kane, but he was playing on, I'm pretty sure it was a bum hip. And so, I'm intrigued about it, but I don't know that I'm willing to, give up a roster spot for him unless like an opportunity presents itself, which we could get into a little bit later.
Yeah, that is true. He didn't play the best, but he didn't play bad. And I think big part of it does have to do with that injury that I brought up earlier. But it is reported now that he's back at full health and he's kind of just waiting to see how the season progresses, is expected to sign somewhere next month, sometime in the month of November. The Rangers are among a handful of teams that are reportedly interested in Kane. I know Frank Saravalli said that the Rangers, the Buffalo Sabres, and the Detroit Red Wings are the 3 teams to watch. But there's certainly other teams like Florida, Dallas. A lot of teams are going to be interested in Kane. A lot of teams that have a lot more cap space than us. Currently, the Rangers have less than $1 million in projected cap. It's going to accrue in December and go up a little bit. But the Rangers might have enough money to make it work next month. They'd probably have to move some pieces, but I think it is possible. So just Collin, on the situation with the cap, the amount of teams interested, do you think the Rangers have enough money to make a realistic push for Kane, or do you think we're going to get outbought?
I think if you look at the other situations, it makes sense. DeBrincat has his old line mate, or the Red Wings have his old line mate, DeBrincat, excuse me. And Buffalo is where he grew up. Obviously, he grew up a Rangers fan, as one would expect, because we're the elite team in New York. But growing up in Buffalo, it might be nice to be closer to where he actually grew up. I think he forced a trade to the Rangers last season, one, because we were the only super competitive team in New York, making a push for the playoffs, and obviously we fell a little bit short of that. But I think that he wanted to be in New York, and I think that he's willing to leave money on the table to stay in New York. How much money is going to be the real question. How much money are other teams going to feel comfortable offering him? Because if it isn't that far, if it's like 1 or 2 mil off, he's won his cups, he's got his accolades. I think he just wants to finish off his career somewhere where he's comfortable with it, and where, like, he kind of gets to pick where he wants to go. So depending on how much Florida and Dallas are willing to offer will really determine where he goes, in my opinion. Because I don't think that those other teams really pose as much of a threat as the Rangers do in terms of location and where he wants to finish off his career and possibly retire.
Yeah, I think it's a curious situation because I completely understand what you're saying. Where, like, does he want to go back to his hometown team? Does he want to get back with his old line mates in Detroit? But the fact that he's saying that he wants to wait until November to see how the season is playing out so far, it kind of just looks like, based on that at least, that he wants to go to a contender. Now, clearly out of those 3 teams, it's like a little too early to tell who's going to be the best of the 3, but I think the Rangers probably would be the best of the 3. Buffalo is a team that's been picking up some wins early on this season. They might be a fringe playoff team, and Patrick Kane probably would make them a playoff team. Detroit, I'm not really sure what their situation is looking like so far this season, but I don't know. I think he might be willing to take another pay cut to go for the Rangers if his intention is to try to go for another cup. I think his best chance would be with the Rangers, but it kind of really just depends on, like, what he's thinking. These are all reports. He hasn't himself come out and said, like, this is where I want to go. Like last year, he was very, very vocal about, I am only going to the New York Rangers. And he kind of forced his way onto the Rangers. But now the question is, let's just say hypothetically the Rangers do find a way to re-sign Kane. Where is he going to be fitted in? Because we have a full roster right now. Obviously, it's not perfect, but I'm personally satisfied with how the first 3 games of the season have gone. Kane is a winger on the right side. We currently have Kakko on the first, then Lafreniere on the second, and then it's who's even on the third? Is it
it's Blake Wheeler?
Yeah, it's Blake Wheeler. So Kane would obviously have to demote one of those players down. You don't want to put Patrick Kane on the 4th line. I could see him being on the 3rd line with Cooley and Trocheck, but at the same time, I could also see him being up on the 2nd with Panarin and Hedl. Only problem is, we saw last season, Panarin and Kane didn't reignite that chemistry like we thought they did. So, Collin, my question for you is, in a world where the Rangers re-sign Patrick Kane tomorrow, where do you put him in the lineup?
I mean, if I'm looking at the lineup right now, in my ideal world, if we were to sign him, I would probably try and put Blake Wheeler on his off wing, put him on the left wing. Cooley goes out of the lineup or shuffles into that 4th line, and then you make that 3rd line Wheeler, Trocheck, and Kane. Because I'm not touching those top 2 lines. The kids need to get the top 6 minutes, and I'm not trying to prohibit them from doing that. I think Lafreniere's looked really good to start the season. I think Kakko has had strong moments with the puck and looked good on that first line. Obviously, the points have yet to come, like we'd hoped, but we're only 3 games in, so I'm not trying to break up either of those lines, because hopefully those are the lines for the foreseen future. I'd like those to be the lines for a long, long time, and for those guys to actually get it going. So I wouldn't touch those lines. I think that 3rd line is a little bit more flexible, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to put Wheeler on his off wing, or even, I don't know, I haven't been extremely impressed with Wheeler's play so far. So I don't know. We'd have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to agree with you there. The 3rd line is the most flexible. Like Lafreniere, he's receiving a lot of criticism because of the fact that he's not really recording a lot of points so far. But once again, it is only 3 games. Just like Patrick Kane, we also need to give it a little bit more time to see how the season fleshes out, who starts to really prosper, what lines are working long term. Maybe just that 2nd line of Panarin, Hedl, and Lafreniere, I think, has been one of the Rangers' best lines. But maybe they just had a couple of good games, and then, from now on, they're just going to go downhill. So I don't know, but definitely either second or 3rd line for me. I like the 1st line, and Patrick Kane cannot be on the 4th for me. The other thing is just, back to the money thing. Once again, the Rangers don't have a lot of cash. So, like, what would a Patrick Kane contract even look like, when, no matter who gets him, like, how do you project that contract to look? Because obviously he's old. you're not going to sign him for like 7 years, but like maybe like a 2-year, 3-year deal, or do you see him just signing like a 1-year contract somewhere for super cheap?
I think that the days of Patrick Kane getting those lengthy extensions are long behind us. I think coming off an injury, a lot of teams are going to be wary to see if he can get back to where he was. Because I mean, last season, 45 points in 54 games, not terrible. Or no, it was 57 and 73. Excuse me, that was his stats with the Blackhawks. But he was a minus 22 on the season. So while he's putting up points, he's also out there for a lot of goals against, and teams can be a little bit scared of that, especially because he's not putting up the 92 points he put up in the season prior, the 66 and 56. He was annually a point per game player, and now he's fallen below that. And it used to cover up his defensive liabilities, but it isn't doing so anymore. So I think that is a big thing, especially coming off of injury, how he's going to perform and whether his defensive metrics will take a step up because his skating will be better and improved and things like that. I project probably a 1 to 2 year, like $3.5 million deal, something that's easily movable to a bad team if he doesn't do well, and something that could look like a steal, maybe 3.5 to 4. I can't see it being much higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's not going to be making a lot of money. He's at the tail end of his career. Probably not going to be long term either. I like that projection that you put out there. I'm going to have to agree with you. But we've covered, is it possible? We've covered where he might go. But at the end of the day, it's just the one question remains: should the Rangers do it? In my opinion, I'd be willing to give it a shot because it's not like last season where we went all in with Kane, just rocked with him in the lineup straight into the playoffs, not really aware of what was going to happen. But I think at this point in time, November is only the second month of the season. If the Rangers can sign him short term for very, very cheap, maybe he's willing to take a pay cut. They can test out a lot of things with Kane, especially now that he's healthy. They can move him around. They'll have more time to figure out what works and what doesn't. So, and if it doesn't work out with him for anything, the Rangers could very well easily ship him off somewhere else at the deadline. I'm sure there would be a no trade clause involved, but there was last time, and he still waived it to come to us. So who knows what can happen. But I think overall, if the price is right and the Rangers can get him for super cheap, I would say yes, they should. They should at least look into it because they are interested. Obviously last year they were like dedicated to getting him. This year, they're just interested. They're a team to watch. So I would say, yeah, Drury, keep your eye on that. See how it progresses. Look at the other offers on the table and don't overspend. Please don't. If he's too much, don't do it. But if he lowers his price, yes. But I don't know what your take is on the situation.
I'll say I'm kind of similar in the fact that I'm not entirely turned off to it. I know a lot of Rangers fans are. I think that the main reason that he wants to come back is kind of to get rid of that mantra that he's done. I think that he wants to redeem himself. I know he feels let down with how the season went, and he wasn't exactly pleased with his progression with the Rangers and his production. So I think he wants to come back and kind of shut up all the haters and be like, hey, I'm still here. I can still do this, and I want to help this team. Should they do it? If the price is right, yeah, go for it. I mean, worst case scenario, like you said, you move him at the deadline, or if need be, if he's really that bad, you can send him down on waivers, and then he gets claimed by somebody. You know what I mean? Or put him on waivers for the purpose of contract termination. So I think that there's plenty of options, and if we can get him for a cheap enough cost, it really is, again, a low-risk, high-reward type move. And I think with Laviolette's system also holding forwards accountable in their own zone, I think it could also help with his defensive metrics and upping those. So even that if he isn't producing at the level that he used to, even if he's like sort of close to it with better defensive stats, I think that he could provide a lot to this team. And who struggles in that, in my opinion, on that right wing. I think that they're all kind of lacking at this time just because two are really young. Wheeler's really old. Like, you don't have, and Kane's also really old, so you can make that argument as well. But I'll go back to the fact that I haven't really been entirely impressed by Wheeler as so far, as much as I thought I would be. I thought that he would be a lot more of a force, and I feel like he constantly is just getting beat to pucks and losing battles and constantly spinning out and getting off the ice. So I'm keeping my eye on it. If Wheeler's play gets better, then I'd say no way, unless you're going to move him over to the left wing. But I like Cooley on the lineup. I like our lineup right now. I don't know that I'm going to do a whole lot to change it at this moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right in everything that you just said. It's definitely a very controversial topic, probably the most controversial regarding the Rangers right now. A lot of fans are in full support of giving him a second shot. Now that now we have a new head coach, he's back at full health, and then the other half of the fan base is kind of just like, no way, we tried it, it failed. Why would we ever try it again? But only time will tell if the Rangers do continue to pursue Kane and stay interested in him. And hopefully sometime next month we'll have a final answer of where he's going to go. I hope it's with the Rangers, but if he goes somewhere else, he goes somewhere else, and we'll see how he performs there. But we'll be sure to keep everyone updated on anything Patrick Kane related if there's any updates, as well as any news and discussions regarding the New York Rangers. So be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss a notification. Please, on a topic like this, be sure to leave your thoughts on it in the comment section below. We need to hear your opinions if you think we should bring back Kane or not, and we'll be replying to those comments as well. Make sure you follow all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers on both Twitter and Instagram to stay caught up with all of our content over there. And that pretty much wraps up this episode. We'll be back tomorrow to cover the game against Nashville. Until then, have a good one, and let's go
Rangers.